Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah. Shabbat Shalom to the whole entire house of Yasha'al. All 12 tribes, wherever your feet are touching the soil on this yom. Shabbat Shalom to you. Peace and blessings. Shalom and Barak'ut to you and your entire house. Shabbat Shalom to the elder brother, Yehuda, commonly called Judah. Shabbat Shalom to the younger brother, Ephraim, or Ephraim, commonly called Ephraim. Shabbat Shalom to the former stranger, the former foreigner, who was formerly estranged from the everlasting covenant, but having received the Ruach HaKadosh, the Ruach of adoption, the Ruach of Yahushua HaMashiach, and whereby having been engrafted into the olive tree, who is Yahushua, who is Yasha'al, and whereby now becoming a fellow citizen, and now whereby becoming a fellow partaker of the same everlasting covenant and promise and inheritance that was given to Yasha'al and to Yasha'al alone. Shabbat Shalom to you, wherever your feet are touching the soil across the four corners of the earth. Shabbat Shalom to you, peace and blessings, Shalom and Barak'ut to you and your entire house. Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah. To those of you who are on YouTube, once again, welcome back. We're grateful that the Master Yahuwah has sent you our way. There are many YouTube channels that you could have gone to, but we are humble and appreciative that the Master would deem us worthy to send his sheep this way, that he would deem us worthy to be caretakers over his sheep, the sheep of his pastor. And so we welcome you once again. We welcome you to Yahuwah's Remnant Shabbat gathering. And once again, for those of you who are on YouTube, if you desire to join us live, you can contact us. You may contact us via the email address that is located within the channel description. Once again, Shabbat Shalom to you, to your entire house. Welcome to Shabbat, to Yahuwah's Remnant Shabbat gathering. I am Dawood Ban Yahuwah. This is my Aisha Ashayah.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. As a change of venue, Barak Yahuwah, my Aisha, we are now in an undisclosed location. Those on Zoom know where we're at because, you know, someone told them. But we are we are in an undisclosed location. And my Aisha, she will not be reading today. She's been given a break today. But one of my sons will be reading today. Zamir Yahu. Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah. You will hear his voice reading today, and we pray that the Master goes before him, that he gives him boldness of Ruach, and that he reads as he ought. Barak Yahuwah, under the inspiration of the Ruach HaKadosh. Shabbat Shalom to you once again, worldwide, wherever your feet are touching the soil. Barak Yahuwah. So here we are on the 7th Shabbat. We're commanded after first fruit to count 7 Shabbats of days, 7 weeks. And on the 50th day, we are to celebrate with a festival, the festival of Shabua'ut, commonly called the Feast of Weeks, in which the Gentiles call Pentecost. We're not going, the Master has spoken much about Feast of Weeks. He's spoken much about Shabua'ut, and we're not going to rehash what he has spoken. He's already spoken enough. He's already spoken enough. He has, it's been well documented. Over the course of the past 7 weeks, Shabua'ut, Feast of Weeks, has been well documented. There's not much more to be said about it. He has laid the foundation, and there is not much more to be said about it. He has sent me by today to just discuss how do we celebrate it. How do we celebrate Shabua'ut? How do we celebrate? The operative word here is celebrate. How do we celebrate Shabua'ut, the Feast of Weeks, in which the Gentiles call Pentecost? And so the Master sent me by to just discuss that today. And it won't be very long. It won't take very long. It doesn't have to take very long. With respect to just simplified instructions on how he wants his children to celebrate Shabua'ut, Feast of Weeks, commonly called Pentecost. And so, without further delay, if you are taking notes, the title of this teaching is Searching for the Ancient Path, Part 50. Part 50 is purposely Part 50 because we're embarking upon the 50th day. Searching for the Ancient Path, Part 50. Shabua'ut, bring your best offering. Bring your best offering. Searching for the Ancient Path, Part 50. Shabua'ut, bring your best offering. Bring your best offering. It is forever ordained on the tablets of Shamaim that we must bring offerings for Shabua'ut, that we must bring him pure offering, that we must bring him unblemished offerings on Shabua'ut. We find Ruach in the 6th chapter of Jubilees, and that's not one of our precepts, bringing an offering, bringing a first fruit offering on Shabua'ut, one that was well-pleasing unto the master. And having received that well-pleasing offering that Ruach brought, what did the master do? He renewed his covenant with him. He renewed his covenant with Ruach after receiving a well-pleasing offering unto him. We find Abraham doing the same thing in the same book, Jubilees, bringing an offering on Shabua'ut, and one in which was well-pleasing unto the master. And after receiving a well-pleasing offering unto him, he renewed his covenant with him. He renewed his covenant with him, and he promised Abraham that through him, all the nations of the earth were going to be Baruch. All the nations of the earth were going to be blessed through him. And so we're to bring an offering. We are to bring an offering, and we are going to bring him an offering. Indeed, we're going to bring him our best offering on Shabua'ut. We're going to celebrate with him, and we're going to bring him our best offering. For those of you who are on Zoom, most of you already know where this is going. I pray that you already know, Barak Yahuwah, where this is going. But for those of you who are on YouTube, and for some of you who are new to Zoom, this may sound new to you with respect to the offerings and with respect to what is expected of us on Shabua'ut, and how indeed we are required and expected to celebrate it. Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah. So if you have your scriptures, I believe we're turning to what, beloved son? Leviticus 23?
Leviticus 23, 9, 21.
Verses 9 through 21. Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. Verses 9 through 21. Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. Verses 9 through 21. Uikra, Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. Verses 9 through 21. How do we celebrate Shabua'ut? How do we celebrate this feast? How do we celebrate this feast in Ruach and in truth? That's key. How do we celebrate this feast in Ruach and in truth? Leviticus chapter 23, verses 9 through 21. Beginning at verse 9. Go ahead and read for us, son.
And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Yasharal, and you shall say to them, When you come into the land which I give you, and shall reap its harvest, then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to the priest. He shall raise the sheaf before Yahuwah for your acceptance. On the morrow after the Shabbat, the priest waves it. And on that day, when you wave the sheaf, you shall prepare a male lamb a year old, a perfect one, as an ascending offering to Yahuwah, and his grain offering, 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, and an offering made by fire to Yahuwah, a sweet fragrance, and his drink offerings, 1/4 of a hin of wine. And you do not eat bread or roasted grain or fresh grain until the same day that you have brought an offering to your Elohim, a law forever throughout your generations and all your dwellings. And from the morrow after the Shabbat.
And from the morrow after the Shabbat, read.
From the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, you shall count for yourselves 7 completed Sabbaths.
You shall count for yourself 7 completed Shabbats. 7 Shabbats of days, 49 days. Read.
Unto the morrow after the 7th Shabbat.
Unto the morrow after the Shabbat, 50 days. Read.
You count 50 days. Then you shall bring a new grain offering to
Listen.
Yahuwah.
You shall bring a new grain offering to Yahuwah. Indeed, Shabua'ut is a wheat festival. It is a wheat festival. It is centered around the wheat harvest. And it denotes the ingathering of wheat. It denotes the ingathering of first fruit, which is identified as wheat. And so all of the feasts are surrounded by harvest time, because it's all about the harvesting of the earth. Is that right, beloved son? Barak Yahuwah. It's all about the harvesting of the earth. But Shabua'ut, the Feast of Weeks, which is also called first fruits, is surrounding the wheat harvest, and it is regarding the harvesting of the wheat. Who is the wheat? Who is the wheat? Well, this goes all the way back to Adam. This goes all the way back to Adam, who was what? Who was the first fruits, who was the first wheat from the soil. Adam meaning mankind. He was the firstborn, the first fruit from the soil. So you need to understand this, that the wheat is a representation of Adam, who is what? Who is first fruit, who is firstborn. And so this festival denotes the first resurrection. It denotes the reconciliation of his first fruit, of his firstborn, of his first wheat, of the first wheat from the ground, the reconciliation of mankind back into covenant with him. So it says here, bring me the wheat, bring me the first fruits, the first wheats of your harvest. Read.
Bring from your dwellings for a wave offering 2 loaves of bread of 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour.
The bread is also from the wheat. This wheat is a representation of mankind. It is a representation of Adam. All of the feasts are hidden within the feast, rather, is Yahuwah's redemption plan for mankind. However, here in first fruits, this is his redemption plan for his first fruits, for his firstborn, for those who have received the breath of life now. For those who have received this breath of life and who are following the commands that are proceeding from his mouth. Read.
Bake with leaven. First fruits to Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. Read.
And besides the bread, you should bring 7 lambs a year old.
You shall bring 7 lambs. Here's what you need to understand. After the fall of mankind, in Genesis chapter 4, we find Cain, or commonly called Cain, and Abel bringing offerings to the Master Yahuwah. Cain was bringing the fruit of the soil. However, he was supposed to bring the first fruit of the soil. Habal brought the firstling, or the firstborn, from the flock. Cain was supposed to again bring the first fruits from the soil, which was what? Which was a representation of mankind, being the first fruit from the soil. Habal was to bring the firstlings, or the firstborn, from the flock, which was a representation of the fallen state of mankind. And so here in this instruction in the Torah of bringing the first fruit, from the soil, and of bringing the firstling from the flocks, Yahuwah was saying this: mankind, Adam, you transgress my Torah, and the judgment of death is upon you and your children. However, so that I don't instantly consume you right now, because I have a legal right to do so, you bring me the first fruit from the soil, which is a representation of you, and you bring me the firstlings from the flock, which is a representation of you in your fallen state. You bring it and you offer it unto me, so that I don't instantly consume you. You bring this in your place, so that I do not instantly consume you, and you are to do this until Yeshua comes, which is to say deliverance in the person of Yahushua HaMashiach, who offered himself as first fruit and presented himself as firstborn. Read.
Perfect ones, and a young bull and 2 rams. They are an ascending offering to Yahuwah, with their grain offering and their drink offerings, and an offering made by fire for a sweet fragrance to Yahuwah. And you shall offer 1 male goat as a sin offering, and 2 male lambs a year old as a slaughter of a peace offering. And the priest shall weigh them besides the bread of the first fruits, as a wave offering before Yahuwah. Besides the 2 lambs, they are kadosh to Yahuwah for the priest. And on this same day you shall proclaim a kadosh gathering for yourselves. On
the same day, here, this is part of understanding how do we celebrate it. You shall proclaim a kadosh gathering. You shall assemble yourselves. You shall assemble yourselves on this day. You shall bring me my offerings, and you shall assemble yourself on this day. Read.
You should do no servile work on it.
It is a Shabbat day. You shall do no servile work on this day. It is a Shabbat day. You are to bring him his offerings. These offerings are representation of us. The animals, the firstling from the flocks of the herd, are representation of mankind in its fallen state. The grain offerings and everything that is associated with the grain, bread, and everything that is associated with the soil, wine and oil and grapes, is a representation of the first fruit from the soil, which is mankind. So we're to bring him his offerings. These offerings, again, are a representation of us, and we are to bring him the firstlings from the flock of the herd, which again are a representation of us. We are to assemble ourselves. We are to assemble ourselves. We are to have a Kadush gathering, and we are to do no servile work on that day. It is a Shabbat day. It is a Shabbat day unto Yahuwah, a day of rest unto him. Read.
A law forever in all your dwellings.
A law forever in all your dwellings.
Throughout your generations.
Throughout your generations. Throughout your generations. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Line upon line, precept upon precept. Here a little, there a little. How do we celebrate Shabua'ut? How do we celebrate Shabua'ut? Again, it is a wheat harvest. It is a wheat harvest. And it denotes the master's wheat being gathered into his barn. When is the wheat being gathered into his barn? During the wedding feast. During the wedding feast. During the wedding feast, the Mashiach is going to gather his wheat into his barn. And thus, Shabua'ut is also looked upon as the renewing of our marriage vows. I said I wasn't going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk much about that. But thus, it denotes the renewing of our marriage vows, because it denotes the marriage feast of the Lamb and the gathering of the wheat into the barn. The wheat being Adam, being mankind, being firstborn, being the first fruits from the soil. Line upon line, precept upon precept. Here a little, there a little. Give us another precept, beloved son.
Numbers 28, verses 1 through 10.
Numbers 28, verses 1 through 10. Numbers chapter 28, verses 1 through 10. Numbers chapter 28, verses 1 through 10. Numbers chapter 28, verses 1 through 10. Beginning at verse 1. Read, son.
And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Command the children of Yasharal, and you shall say to them, Take heed to bring my offering, my food for my offering, made by fire as a sweet fragrance to me, at their appointed time. And you shall say to them, This is the offering made by fire which you bring to Yahuwah. 2 male lambs a year old, perfect ones, daily, a continual ascending offering. The one lamb you prepare in the morning, and the other lamb you prepare between the evenings, with 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour as a grain offering, mixed with 1/4 of a hin of pressed oil, a continual ascending offering, which was offered at Mount Sinai for a sweet fragrance, an offering made by fire to Yahuwah, and his drink offering, 1/4 of a hin for each lamb. Pour out the drink to Yahuwah as an offering in the Kadush place, and the other lamb you prepare between the evenings, as the morning grain offering and his drink offering. You prepare as an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yahuwah. And on the Shabbat day, 2 lambs a year old, perfect ones, 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour as a grain offering, mixed with oil, with its drink offering, the ascendant offering for every Shabbat, besides the continual ascendant offering with its drink offering.
Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah. So Numbers 28 declares that we are to bring him his food at the appointed time. 2 lambs. 2 lambs, one in the morning, one in the evening, one at the 3rd hour, and one at the 9th hour. We've already discussed that these lambs, they represent what? They represent you and I in our fallen state. And thus, they are to be continual. They are to be continual. Why are they be continual? Because there's a judgment of death that was pronounced over mankind. And so that I don't instantly consume you, you are to bring these to me continually. I need to continually smell the smoke from these ascending offerings so that I do not consume you. These lambs must be perfect. They must be blemishless. I don't want, he doesn't want something that is defiled. That's beside the point. Something perfect had to be slaughtered so in our place, because we have to be perfect, and so that he would relinquish from instantly destroying us. Moreover, the text declares that wheat was to be brought. Oil and wine was to be brought. Who is the wheat? We are the wheat. The wheat is the representation of Adam, the first fruit, the firstborn from the soil. These lambs, they also what? They also denote the Messiah. They are also a shadow of the Messiah. But the Messiah, he died for us. He gave up his life for us. And so his blood was counted as our blood, as the blood of these lambs was also counted as our blood. And so he died in our place, us and him and us. And so it is as though we hung on that stake with him. Just as it is so, we were there on that altar when these lambs were being slain. And so these lambs, again, are representations of us, as Yahushua came as a representation of us. The text declares then that these offerings, they must continue. They must be offered continually. Continually. How long was continually? Forever. It does not end. It does not end. Continually. It does not end. We're to bring these offerings continually. It does not end. Day and night, morning and evening, we must bring these offerings. And again, as it was explained earlier to the Zoom family here, Daniel showed us how to bring the offerings while in captivity. We see Daniel bringing offerings during the 3rd hour and the 6th hour and the 9th hour. This was a shadow and symbolic of the times in which Yahushua hung on the stake. He was hung up on the stake in the 3rd hour. During the 6th hour, the whole earth became dark. And on the 9th hour, he gave up his spirit. He died. He gave up his Ruach, and he died. And thus, we are to continue now to bring offerings the 3rd, the 6th, and the 9th hour, because these offerings are continual, because the offering of the Mashiach is what? It is continual. It is a continual offering. This offering is eternal. It is a continual offering. The blood of the Lamb is going to cover us continually throughout eternity. Do you understand this? Without end. Everlasting. It's not going to end. And so we're still to bring him continual offerings. Continual offerings. The 3rd hour, the 6th hour, and the 9th hour, understanding that the grain, the oil, the wine, the lambs are representations of us. The question is, how do we bring these offerings? Give us another precept.
Numbers 28, verses 26 through 31.
Numbers 28, verses 26 to 31. Numbers 28, verses 26 to 31. Numbers 28, verses 26 through 31. Now here in verses 1 through 10, in the Torah, it is declared that we are to bring him continual offerings, morning and evening. And again, Daniel shows us how to bring these offerings while in captivity, morning, afternoon, and evening. But nevertheless, the Torah declares that we are to bring him his food at the appointed time, daily, continually, morning and evening. Morning and evening. A lamb in the morning, a lamb in the evening. Moreover, in the Torah, it is mentioned that in addition to the morning and evening offering, on the Shabbat day, we're to bring him 2 additional offerings. 2 additional offerings in addition to the morning and evening offering that's continual every single day. We're to bring him additional offerings on the Shabbat day. Every Shabbat day, we're to bring him additional offerings. Again, I must remind you, these offerings represent us. They represent Adam. They represent the first fruit from the soil, who is Adam, and they represent Adam in his fallen state as after the fall. The animals represent Adam in his fallen state. So, morning and evening, continually. And on the Shabbat day, extra offerings are required. Now we arrive at Numbers 28, verses 26 through 31. Beginning at verse 26. Go ahead and read.
And on the day of the first fruits, when you bring a new grain offering to
on the day of the first fruit. This is talking about the Feast of Weeks. Feast of Weeks is also called first fruits. The first fruits of what? Of the wheat harvest. There is a first fruits that follows unleavened bread, but this is the first fruit of the barley harvest. This is the first fruit of the barley harvest. Shabua'ut, or the Feast of Weeks, is the first fruit of the wheat harvest. Of the wheat harvest. Again, who is the wheat? We are the wheat. The first fruit from the soil, no different from the barley harvest. That also represented us, the first fruit from the soil. But that was a shadow indeed of Yahushua coming as us, coming as barley, as the first barley from the soil, and offering himself to the Father as first fruits, as a sweet smelling aroma into his nostrils, so that when we are in him, in us, so that we are in him and him in us, that we too can be counted as first fruits, just as he is. Beginning at verse 26, go ahead and read.
And on the day of the first fruits, when you bring a new grain offering to Yahuwah at your festival of Shabua'ut, you have a Kadush gathering. You do no servile work.
You do no servile work. You have a Kadush gathering, and you do no servile work. Read.
And you shall bring near an ascending offering.
And you shall bring near a whole burnt offering, an ascending offering. Listen, a whole burnt offering. You are to bring all of the offering, not part of it, not a quarter of it, not 3/4 of it, not 1/3 of it. Listen, you are to bring all of it. All of it. Again, who does these offerings represent? Us. So you are to bring all of you. All of you. Ascending offering means whole burnt offering, meaning the whole animal. Everything. Everything. And so we are to bring all of us. Not part of us, all of us. All of us. Read.
And you should bring near an ascending offering as a sweet fragrance to Yahuwah.
Mm-hmm.
2 young bulls, 1 ram,
Mm-hmm.
and 7 lambs a year old,
Mm-hmm.
with their grain offering
Uh-huh.
of fine flour mixed with oil.
Uh-huh.
3/10 of an ephah for each bull.
Uh-huh.
2/10 for the 1 ram.
Uh-huh.
1/10 for each 7 lambs. 1 male goat to make an atonement for you.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect ones that are for you. Prepare them with their drink offering, besides the continual ascending offering with his grain offering.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. So, Numbers 28, 1 through 10, to recap, declares that we are to bring him continual offerings. 1 male lamb. 1 male lamb in the morning. Why is it male? Because it represents Adam. It represents him in his fallen state. 1 male lamb in the morning, 1 male lamb in the evening, continually. And on the Shabbat day, extra offerings are required, in addition to the continual offerings of morning and evening, which never end, which never stop. Now here on first fruits, in addition to the continual offering of morning and evening, and in addition to the offerings on the Shabbat, but this will be not the 7th-day Shabbat, so aside from that, but in addition to the continual offering of morning and evening, there are additional offerings that are required on Shabua'ut. In addition to the continual offering of morning and evening, there are additional offerings that are required on Shabua'ut, and they are ascending offerings. Hear him. They are ascending offerings, whole burnt offerings, the whole animal. We are to bring him all of us. All of us. We're to give it all up. We got to give it all up. We're to bring him, all of us, an ascending offering, perfect offering, all of us on Shabua'ut. In addition to the morning and evening continual offering, we have to bring him additional ascending offerings on Shabua'ut. Additional ascending offerings, whole burnt offerings, all of us on Shabua'ut. How do we do this? How do we do this? Where we understand that we no longer bring him offerings of flesh. We no longer bring him slaughter offerings of animals. In fact, he never wanted them in the first place. He never wanted that in the first place. All along, he has wanted our obedience to him. All of our obedience. A whole ascending offering. All along, he has wanted us to present ourselves to him as living offerings, as living ascending offerings. Kadush and acceptable unto him. Being not being not conformed to this world, but being renewed by the transforming of our minds, so that we understand and know what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of Yahuwah, our Elohim. So the need for animal offerings is no longer here because there's been a perfect offering that has been made for us, Yahushua HaMashiach, who came as us, no different than these animal offerings was slaughtered for us and in our place, and which was a shadow of him and which was a representation of us. He came as us and offered himself as a lamb that was slain before the foundation of the earth. So he does not desire animal offerings anymore. But yet, the text declares in the Torah that we must continue to bring him ascending offerings continually, and extra ones on Shabua'ut. Extra ascending offerings. Again, ascending offering means whole burnt offering. It means all of the animal. All of it. Not pieces of it, but all of the animal wholly consumed on the altar as a sweet smelling aroma into the nostrils of the master. We're to bring him all of us. We're to give it all up. We're to leave it all on the floor. We're to give it all up. So if we're no longer to bring him these animal offerings because that has been satisfied, yet there is a requirement to continually bring him offerings, how do we do so? How do we do so? Line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. How do we celebrate Shabua'ut? We must bring him our best offering. We must bring him our best offering. We must assemble, we must bring him his offerings, and we must keep it as a Shabbat day. Line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. Give us another precept, beloved.
Psalms 34, verse 1.
Psalms 34, verse 1. Tahalim.
It's hard to hear some here, Yahweh.
Says hard to hear you.
Psalms 34, verse 1.
Can you hear him?
Can you get a little closer to the mic?
Okay, I'll move it up.
All right.
How about that?
You hear him better now?
There you go.
All right.
All right. Psalms 34, verse 1.
I barak Yahuwah at all times. His praise is continually in my mouth.
His praise is what?
Continually in my mouth.
Are we not supposed to bring continual offerings? Morning and evening, and as Daniel showed us, morning, afternoon, and evening, are we to bring him continual offerings?
Yes.
Come on, read again. I was about to call you little one. Ain't nothing little about you. Ain't nothing little about you. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
I'm trying to behave. I'm trying to behave. I'm calling your son. I don't want YouTube to know what I call you.
That's all right.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Continual offerings. Come on, read that again.
I barak Yahuwah at all times. His praise is continually in my mouth.
His praise is continually in my mouth. This is the praise. This is the offering that he wants from us. He no longer wants the offerings of bulls and sheep and goats because that offering has been satisfied now. But there's still a need for an offering. And that offering must continually come from our lips. Give us another precept.
Psalms 50, verse 14.
Psalms 50, verse 14. Psalms 50, verse 14. Psalms 50, verse 14. Psalms 50, verse 14. Go ahead and read.
Slaughter thanksgivings to Elohim.
Slaughter what?
Thanksgiving to Elohim.
Slaughter thanksgiving to Elohim. These are the slaughterings that he desires. There are still offerings and slaughterings that are required, but he requires now slaughterings of thanksgiving. Continual praise from our lips. Come on, read.
And pay your vows to Al-Ayun.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Line upon line. Precept upon precept. Here a little. There a little. What offerings does he desire? How do we celebrate Shabua'ut? Offerings are required. That's eternal. They are required. But these offerings, again, they represent us. And these are continual offerings. And so we now must bring him, all of us. They are ascending offerings, rather. We must bring him, all of us. We got to leave it all out. We got to leave it all out. Oh, I'm getting excited already. We got to give it all up. Leave your voices on the floor.
Yeah.
Because there's a continual offering morning and evening that is required. And additional offerings that are going to be required tomorrow. Additional ascending offerings. We got to give it all up. We got to give it all up. Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
And if you have the breath of life in you, you give it all up.
Barak Yahuwah.
Because he's giving you the breath of life.
Yeah.
He's raised you from the dead.
Yeah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. He's giving you a new expectation.
Yes.
Thank you, Abba.
So you give it all up for him.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Y'all ought to be getting fired up right now.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. We got to give it all up. These are the offerings that he requires. Come on, give us another precept.
Psalms 55, 16 and 17.
Psalms 55, 16 and 17. Psalms 55, 16 and 17. Psalms 55, verses 16 through 17. Psalms 55, verses 16 and 17. Beginning at verse 16. Go ahead and read for us.
I call upon Elohim, and Yahuwah saves me. Evening and morning and at noon.
Evening and morning and at noon. Here it is, giving it up. How we bring him his offerings. Come on, read.
I complain and moan, and he hears my voice.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Morning, afternoon, and evening, we're to bring him his offerings. We are that offering. These animals represented us in our fallen state. That wheat, the grain, it represents us, the first fruit, Adam, the first fruit from the soil. Yahushua HaMashiach came as a representation of us. And this is a continual offering. And we must now continually bring him the bulls of our lips, the praises of our lips, the thanksgiving of our lips. And on Shabua'ut tomorrow, we must bring him extra offerings. And these extra offerings, again, are ascending offerings, which means they are whole, which means that we must bring him all of us. All of us. It's got to come from the belly. It's got to come from the belly. We've got to give him all of us. If you want that fresh wind,
Yeah.
you want that fresh wind, you want that new wine. Now, the master's already covered those bases. You want that fresh breath, you got to bring him his food.
Barak Yahuwah.
I know now we're going there expecting this fresh wind, but there's something else that is required. And the master is saying, yeah, you bring me my offering. You bring me a pure offering, a whole burnt offering, then guess what? There ain't nothing new under the sun. Just like your ancestors when they brought me pure offerings and they were pleasing to me, and I sent down fire to show my approval.
Yeah.
I will send down fire upon you.
Barak Yahuwah.
If these offerings are pleasing unto me, if they're whole, burnt, ascending offerings, I will send down fire to show my approval for these offerings.
Basham Yahushua.
Ain't nothing new under the sun.
Be it.
There ain't nothing new under the sun. Oh, you got to give it up. You got to give it up. You got to bring it all. This is required. We got to bring him his food at the appointed times according to the Torah. And if we do so, I believe with all of me, he going to send down fire.
Barak Yahuwah.
He will send down fire showing that he approves
Yes.
of that ascending offering.
Yes.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. Come on, give us another precept.
Psalms 119, 108.
Psalms 119, 108. Psalms 119, 108. Psalms 119, 108. Tahalim 119, 108. Tahalim, Psalms 119, 108. Beginning at verse 108, go ahead and read.
Please accept the voluntary offerings of my mouth.
Please accept the voluntary offerings of my mouth. Read.
O Yahuwah, and teach me your right rulings.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. These are the offerings that he desires. For those of you who are new, those of you on Zoom who have been here a while, you ought to know this already. You ought to know this already. But listen, some of you, I don't know if you brought a whole burnt offering yet. I don't know if you brought one yet. I pray you bring one tomorrow if you want that breath. If you want to live, if you want new life, if you want renewed wine, bring him an ascending offering. Bring him what he desires. Bring him the bulls of your lips. Bring him all of you. Give it all up because he's worth it all.
Yes.
He's worth all of us. He gave up his whole life for us. He poured out all his life. All his dung, the life of the creature is in his dung. He poured out all his blood, all his dung for us in accordance with the Torah, that when an animal was slaughtered, all of his blood is to be poured out on the ground and buried. All of this offering, all of his blood was poured out for us
Thank you, Master.
upon the ground.
Thank you.
so that we may live. So that we may live. And so he's given up all for us. And we must give up all. Bring him a whole burnt offering. We've got to give it all up. If we want that fire to come down and be that the fire to come down and receive that offering, we must give it all up. We must give it all up. Come on, give us another precept.
Psalms 40:1-8.
I don't know about them, beloved son. We're going to give it all up here.
Yes, sir.
We're going to give it all up.
Rock you up.
We may sleep for 6 days. Get up on the 7th day.
Rock you up.
We're going to give it all up here. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. What was that precept?
Psalms 40:1-8.
Psalms 40, Tahalim. 40, verses 1-8. Again, for those, if you're asking the question, when is Shabua'ut, when is the Feast of Weeks? It is tomorrow. It is 5/31 on the Gregorian calendar. It is tomorrow. Tomorrow marks the Feast of Weeks. Psalms chapter 40, verses 1-8. Psalms chapter 40, verses 1-8. Tahalim chapter 40, verses 1-8. Beginning at verse 1. Come on, read.
I waited for Yahuwah, and he inclined to me and heard my cry. And he drew me out of the pit of destruction, out of the muddy clay, and he set my feet upon a rock. He is establishing my steps. Then he put a new song in my mouth. Praise to our Elohim. Many do see it and fear and trust in Yahuwah. Blessed is that man who has made Yahuwah his trust and has not turned to the proud and those turning aside to falsehood. And Yahuwah my Elohim, many are the wonders which you have done and your purposes toward us. There is no one to compare with you. I declare and speak. There are too many to be numbered. Slaughtering and meal offering you did not desire.
Slaughtering and meal offerings he did not desire. He don't want that. He don't want it. What does he want?
You have opened my ears. A sinning offering and sin offering you did not ask for.
He don't want that.
Then I said, see, I have come. In the scroll of the book,
yes,
it is prescribed for me. I have delighted to do your pleasure, O my Elohim, and your Torah is within my heart.
Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah. Yahushua HaMashiach satisfied the requirement for animal offerings of which he never wanted in the first place. He simply wants his children to obey. So he doesn't want that. Yet the Torah declares that offerings are required. The text says forever, did it not?
Yes, sir.
Forever. Barak Yahuwah. But those offerings are a representation of us, and it is a shadow of us praising the Master forever. Forever. Giving it up. Giving up the bulls of our lips forever. So we are to now enter into Shabua'ut with a shadow of that. Praising him like we don't lost our proverbial mind. Giving it all up so that he will send down fire, in which Shabua'ut denotes the outpouring of breath, the outpouring of fire, the outpouring of Ruach, because it is written, truly, John immersed you in water. But soon, the promise of the Father is coming. And he going to immerse you in fire. He going to immerse you in fire. Barak Yahuwah. He going to send down fire to receive this offering. This whole burnt ascending offering. Barak Yahuwah. So we got to give it out on Shabua'ut. And on the day, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Come on. Come on. Y'all got to hold me back. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Give us another precept.
Hosea chapter 14, verses 1-2.
Hosea chapter 14, verses 1 and 2. Hosea, Husha, chapter 14, verses 1 and 2. Hosea, Husha, chapter 14, verses 1 and 2. Hosea, Husha, chapter 14, verses 1-2. Beginning at verse 1. Come on, read for us.
O Yasharal, return to Yahuwah your Elohim, for you have stumbled by your crookedness. Take words with you and return to Yahuwah. Say to him, take away all crookedness, and accept what is good. And we render the bulls of our lips.
And we render the bulls of our lips. He doesn't want a bull. That's not food for him. Worship is food for him. That's the food. This is the food that he wants. He wants the praises, the bulls of our lips. I don't know about y'all, but I'm giving it up. I'm going to give it up to him. All I have, I'm going to give it to him. The bulls of my lips, expecting for that fire to come down, to receive that ascending offering, to show his approval of the offering that has been brought unto him. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Come on, give us another precept.
Jonah 2, verses 1 through 10.
Jonah, chapter 2, verses 1 through 10. Jonah, chapter 2, verses 1 through 10. Jonah, chapter 2, verses 1 through 10. Beginning at verse 1. Come on, read for us.
And Yunah prayed to Yahuwah, his Elohim, from the stomach of the fish. And he said, I called to Yahuwah because of my distress. And he answered me. From the stomach of Sheol I cried, and you heard my voice. For you threw me into the deep, into the heart of the seas, and the flood surrounded me, and all your breakers and all your waves passed over me. So I said, I have been driven away from your eyes. Will I ever look again towards your Kadush Hiko? Waters encompassed me unto life. The deep closed around me. Weeds were wrapped around my head. And I went down to the base of the mountains. The earth with its bars were behind me forever. But you brought me up to my life from the pit, O Yahuwah, my Elohim. When my life fainted within me, I remember Yahuwah, and my prayer went up to you, into your Kadush temple. Those observing false worthlessness forsake their own love and commitment. But I slaughter to you with the voice of thanksgiving.
I slaughter to you with a voice of thanksgiving. Read.
I pay what I vow.
I pay what I vow.
Deliverance is of Yahuwah. Then Yahuwah spoke to the fish and vomited Yunah
Barak Yahuwah.
unto the dry land.
Yeah, when he received an offering that was well pleasing unto him. Not one of the slaughtering of bulls and goats and sheep, but the voluntary slaughter offerings of the lips, of the mouth. This is what he desires. This is what he desires. And when one is well pleasing unto him, when he receives an offering that is well pleasing unto him, indeed he will send down fire to receive that offering. Yes, he will. Yes, he will. He will send down fire to receive that offering. Come on, read for us.
Hebrews 13, verses 10 through 16.
Hebrews chapter 13. Which verses?
10 through 16.
Verses 10 through 16. Hebrews chapter 13. Verses 10 through 16. Hebrews chapter 13. Verses 10 through 16. Beginning at verse 10. Go ahead and read for us.
We have a slaughter place from which those serving the tent have no authority to eat. For the body of those beasts whose blood is brought into the Kadush place by the high priest for sin are burned outside the camp. And so Yahusha also suffered outside the gate to set apart the people with his own blood. Let us then go to him outside the camp, bearing his reproach. For we have no lasting city here, but we seek the one coming. Through him then, let us continually offer up.
Let us continually offer up, read.
A slaughter offering of praise to Elohim.
A slaughter offering of praise to Elohim.
That is the fruit of our lips.
That is the fruit of our lips. Read.
Giving thanks to his name.
Giving thanks to his name.
And do not forget to do good and to share, for with such slaughter offering Elohim is well pleased.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. The Mashiach satisfied the requirement for animal offerings, yet there's a requirement still in the Torah for continual offerings. These slaughter offerings are representations of us. He has shown us now that the continual offering that he desires from us, in which these slaughterings were representation of, is the continual slaughter offerings of our lips, in which extra slaughter offerings are required on Shabua'ut. You want that fire? You want fresh wind? You want the breath of life? You must bring him his food at the appointed time. You must bring him his offerings at the appointed time, and it must be one that is well pleasing and well acceptable unto him. Now the master has made the declaration. Now we're not going to talk about this, but he's been talking about washing before marriage. He's been talking about that, being clean, being pure, washing before marriage, because these offerings must be clean. These offerings must be pure. And if they are and they are well-pleasing unto him, he will accept them. He will send down fire. He will not deny these offerings. He will not deny them if they are acceptable in accordance to what he has desired. If they are acceptable unto him, if they meet his criteria, he will send down fire and receive those offerings.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Give us another precept.
1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 16 through 18.
1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 16 through 18. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 16 through 18. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 16 through 18. Beginning at verse 16. Go ahead and read for us.
Rejoice always. Pray without ceasing. In all circumstances give thanks. For this is the desire of Elohim in Mashiach, Yahusha, for you.
Barak Yahuwah. Rejoice always. Rejoice always. Bring him the continual slaughter offerings of the lips. This offering is well-pleasing and acceptable unto him. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Give us another precept.
Deuteronomy 16, 16 through 17.
Deuteronomy 16. Deuteronomy chapter 16. Deuteronomy chapter 16, verses 16 and 17. Deuteronomy chapter 16, verses 16 and 17. And 17. Deuteronomy chapter 16, verses 16 through 17. Beginning at verse 16. Come on, read for us.
3 times a year, all your males appear before Yahuwah your Elohim.
3 times a year, all your males appear or to present themselves before Yahuwah your Elohim. Why? We are the representation of Adam, the first fruit from the soil, and we are what the animal represents, the animal representing us in our fallen state. We are, however, representations of Adam, first fruits, firstborn. We are male representation of him. All males are to present themselves before Yahuwah 3 times a year. Read.
In the place where he chooses.
In the place where he has placed his name. Come on, read.
At the feast of Matzah.
At the feast of Matzah.
At the feast of Shabu'ut.
At the feast of Shabu'ut.
And the feast of Sukkot.
At the feast of Sukkot.
And none should appear before Yahuwah empty-handed.
And none should appear before Yahuwah empty-handed. Listen. None shall appear before Yahuwah empty-handed. Read.
But each one with the gift of his hands.
But each one with the gift of his hands. Read.
According to the barakah of Yahuwah your Elohim, which he has given you.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. These offerings that we're talking about, these are the offerings, these are the gifts that the men are to bring. They bring these gifts. They bring these offerings. And every 3rd year they bring a tithe. But the men are to bring these offerings for the priest to offer on the altar. They are to bring these. Now, the master has made it plain that we are these offerings. That we are these offerings. The men, we are these offerings. These are male lambs, male bulls, male goats, the first fruit from the soil. These are us, are they not?
That's right.
And so we're not to appear to him empty-handed. What does that mean, son?
We got to bring our best.
We got to bring it all.
Yes, sir.
We got to bring it all. Men, you got to bring it all. You got to give it all up. You've got to give it all up. Women, you ain't off the hook, but I'm putting the men on the hook. You got to give it all up. You got to appear before him 3 times a year and bring your gift. Bring your offering, which is you. Which is an ascending offering of you. You got to give it all up. You got to give. That's Torah.
That's Torah.
That's Torah. You got to give it all up. You want that fire? Give it all up. Give it all up. Bring him what he desires. A whole burnt offering, an ascending offering of you. Of you. Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Give us another precept.
Acts chapter 2, verses 1 through 15.
Acts chapter 2, verses 1 through 15. We're almost done. Acts chapter 2, verses 1 through 15. Acts chapter 2, verses 1 through 15. Acts chapter 2, verses 1 through 15. Beginning at verse 1. Come on, read for us.
And when the day of the feast of Shabu'ut had come,
Listen. And when the feast of Shabua'ut had come, listen.
They were all with one mind in one place.
They were all with one mind. With one mind in one place. With one mind in one place. Wherever you are gathered, you make sure that you are of one mind. That you are of one mind. The master will not come where there's divide. Where there's divide, there is confusion. He is not the author of confusion. We must be of one mind. Wherever you are, we must be of one mind. Read.
And suddenly there came a sound from the heaven.
And suddenly there came a sound from the Shamayim. Read.
As a rushing mighty wind.
As a rushing mighty wind. The breath of life. The Ruach HaKadosh. Read.
And it filled all the house.
And it filled all the house. Come on. Oh, I'm getting excited. Come on.
Where they were sitting.
Where they were sitting.
And there appeared to them.
Yes.
Divided tongues.
That fire came, didn't it?
As a fire.
Oh, that offering was well pleasing, wasn't it? Fire came down and received that offering.
Yes.
Come on, read.
And settled on each one of them.
And settled on each one of them.
And they were all filled with the Kadosh spirit.
And they were all filled with the Kadosh spirit. Read.
And began to speak with other tongues.
And began to speak with other languages and other tongues. Read.
As the root gave them to speak.
As the root gave them to speak.
Now in Jerusalem.
Listen, before you go on. What you must understand here is when they were gathered together of one mind, they were praising the master. They were singing songs. They were singing hymns. They were in that room praising the master, sending up a sweet smelling aroma into his nostrils when he came. Yes, they were. Yes, they were. They were in that room praising him. Go back to Acts chapter 1 if you don't believe me. They were in that room praising him. Yes, they were. Yes, they were. Bringing him an acceptable offering. And he accepted that offering by fire. He accepted that offering by fire. Come on, read.
Now in Jerusalem, there were dwelling Yahudim, dedicated men from every nation under the heaven. And when this sound came to be, the crowd came together and were confused, because everyone heard them speak in his own language. And they were all amazed and marveled, saying to each other, Look, are not all these who speak Galileans? And how do we hear each one in our own language in which we were born? Parthians and Medes and Elamites, and those dwelling in Aram, Naharim, both Yehuda and Cappadocia, Pontus and Asia, both Persia and Pamphylia, Mizraim and the parts of Libya around Cyrene, visitors from Rome, both Yahudim and converts, Cretans and Arabs. We heard them speaking in our own tongues the great deeds of Elohim. And they were all amazed and were puzzled, saying to each other, What does this mean? And others mocking said, They have been filled with sweet wine.
Listen.
But Kafar, standing up with the 11, lifted up his voice and said to them, Men of Yehuda, and all those dwelling in Jerusalem, let this be known to you.
Yes.
And listen closely to my words.
Come on.
For these men are not drunk, as you imagine.
Yes.
Since it is only the third hour.
Since it is only the third hour. They were sending up offerings at the third hour. At the third hour. Some of you ought to be so excited that you get up at 5 in the morning. Waiting for the third hour offering. Waiting to give it up. To give it all up. In place at the third hour. To give him all that you have. To give him an ascending offering. A whole burnt offering of all of you. So that at the third hour, Barak Yahuwah, he will send down fire. Accepting that offering. Accepting that offering. Y'all want fire?
Yes. Barak Yahuwah.
Bring him a well-pleasing, acceptable offering. Bring him his food. Do things, all things. Listen, Mashpaka. Listen, beloved ones. All things according to the Torah. All things according to the Torah. When we align ourselves with the Torah, he has no choice but to confirm that thing and which we are doing. He must confirm it because he must confirm himself. He is Torah. And so if we are operating within Torah, if we are bringing him a pure, undefiled offering, bringing him his food at the appointed times, which is us, which is all of us, giving him the bulls of our lips at the appointed times, and bringing him extra on Shabua'ut, He has no choice
Barak Yahuwah.
but to confirm that word.
Barak Yahuwah.
He has no choice but to confirm that word and to send down fire. To send down fire,
Yes.
showing his approval of that offering. He has no choice. His word cannot return void. It must accomplish that which he has sent it forth to do. Do you believe it?
Yes.
Barak
Yes.
Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. All things according to Torah. Give us another precept. I think we're about done, are we?
Yeah, this is the last one.
Barak Yahuwah. One more precept, and we're done. Barak Yahuwah.
Matthew chapter 13, verses 24 through 30.
Matthew chapter 13, verses 24 through 30. Matthew chapter 13, verses 24 through 30. Matthew chapter 24, verses
13.
30. Back to
Chapter 13.
Matthew chapter 13, verses 24 through 30. Barak Yahuwah. Matthew chapter 13, verses 24 through 30. Beginning at verse 24. Go ahead and read for us.
Another parable he put before them, saying, The rain of the Shabua'ut has become like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed darnel among the wheat and went away. And when the blade sprouted and bore fruit, then the darnel also appeared. And the servants of the master of the house came and said to him, Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? For where then does it have the darnel? And he said to them, A man, an enemy, did this. And the servant said unto him, Do you wish then that we go and gather them up? But he said, No, lest while you gather up the darnel, you also uproot the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. And at the time of the harvest I shall say to the reapers, First gather the darnel, and bind them in the bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my granary.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. There indeed is what the Feast of Weeks, the ingathering of wheat, represents. It represents the ingathering of the wheat into his barn, the wedding feast. Who are his wheat? Those who have received his breath. Those who have entered into marriage with him and who have entered into covenant with him, and thus will enter into the marriage sup of the Lamb. The marriage sup of the Lamb. It represents again the gathering of the wheat into the barn. You must receive his breath now. You must receive that breath of life now. If you want to get there, you must receive his breath now. You must receive this new wine now. You must receive the breath of life now. You must receive the Ruach HaKadosh from the living Elohim if you desire to be included at the wedding feast, the ingathering of the wheat into his barn. Thank you, Master Yahuwah, for what you've done over the course of these past 7 weeks.
Yes, Master.
We thank you, Master Yahuwah, for the culmination of these teachings in showing us now how we are to celebrate Shabua'ut, how we are to celebrate with all that we have, bringing you us as an ascending offering. It is my prayer now, Master, that your people, that the hearts and the mind of your people have been prepared, and that we will show up, Master, with expectation, giving you all that we have, such that you will be well pleased with these ascending offerings, and such that you will send down fire to consume the offering, showing your approval of the offering of which we have brought unto you. Fill us with new wine.
Yes, yes.
Fill us with new wine, Master.
Yes, Master.
Fill us with all of your breath.
Yes, Abba.
Fill us with a mighty wind. Fill us with all of you, Master.
Yes, Abba.
Fill us with all of you, Master.
Yes, Master.
So that through us, Master, in this season, you may accomplish mighty things.
Yes, Abba.
That through us, Master, uncommon signs and wonders may be done.
Yes.
That uncommon things may be done through your children, through your servants, such as to turn men from darkness back to light,
Yes.
such as to turn men from Torahlessness back to your righteous Torah,
Yes, Master.
so that you and you alone would be esteemed
Yes.
in all the earth, so that all the earth would come to know you,
Yes,
so that all the earth would come to know your name,
Yes.
so that all the earth would come to know you in the forgiveness of their crimes.
Yes, Master.
In the righteous name of Yahushua
Yes,
HaMashiach. So be it.
So
So
be it.
be it. So be
Big.
it. To those of you on YouTube, once again, thank you for stopping by. We pray that you are now prepared, that the Master has prepared you sufficiently, prepared you, and that you are now prepared to show up for Shabua'ut tomorrow, bringing your best offering, bringing all that you have, giving him the fruit and the bulls of your lips, a well-pleasing and well-acceptable aroma unto the Master Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Until the next time, Yahuwah barak you and guard you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and show favor unto you. Yahuwah lift up his face upon you and give you shalom. Thus you shall put my name on the children of Yasha'al, and I myself shall barak them. So be it, so be it, so be it. Shalom.
So